In today's SOD TV's Warcraft Logs update, we're spotlighting the current leaders. The number 1 spot continues to be dominated by the formidable Nightsong. This Shaman spec tank, who is part of the Summers Guild on the Living Flame EU server, has now held the coveted 1 spot an impressive 32 times. But the competition is fierce, with other top players hot on Nightsong's heels. Hunter melee player Tree Ranger is also a 32-time holder of the top spot, showcasing their prowess and consistency in the game. Not far behind is Sopado, a Warrior Fury player who has clinched the top position 23 times. In the balanced Druid category, Honeycow from Link Logs continues to dominate with a DPS of 1,142.9, holding the top spot for over a week now. Following closely, Innate from Humbertism maintains the second position with a DPS of 1,110.0. Hooty Hoot, despite being guildless, secures the third spot with a DPS of 1,099.1. The competition remains fierce among the remaining top 10 players: Fuel, Sinit, Blazarus, Crushy, Uwatism, Hotmas, and Centripetal, all showcasing exceptional skills and strategies in the game. In the Feral Druid category, BGTD from the Guild B tribe continues to hold the top spot for over a week with a consistent DPS of 1,517.3. Right on his tail, we have Parse Police from the Guild Silver Saga continues, maintaining a DPS of 1,498.7. Not far behind, Lawsuit, also from Silver Saga continues, secures the third position with a DPS of 1,473.8. The remaining top 10 players making waves in the Feral Druid category are Jaini, Qiangjing Qi, Indef, Fshi, Africantiger, Ambatukam, and Laboba. In the Guardian Druid category, NMX from the Guild Chinese Textile Machine continues to dominate, holding the top spot for over a week with a DPS increase from 958.4 to 1,006.4. Raikiri of Pepident remains steady at second place, maintaining a DPS of 886.1, while Pumpmaride holds third with a consistent DPS of 878.5. The remaining top 10 players making their mark in this category are Minetsis, Pumpyx, Kadedi, Sudoaptic Kiljarapuli, Judadiuda Diasai and XTK. In the Melee Hunter category, Tree Ranger from the Guild Cartel continues to dominate with a consistent DPS of 1,556.9, maintaining this top position since May 12, 2024. Today, Miniaros from the Guild Chinese Textile Machine has moved up to second place, boasting a DPS of 1,535.1. Algi from the Guild Dendansky Meadow holds steady in third place with a DPS of 1,514.9. The remaining top 10 players for today, making waves in the Melee Hunter category, are Bald Morocho, Johnny Sins, Rezorth, Yang Lichi, Yang Lichichi, Zatara, and Anix. In the Ranged Hunter category, Makes from the Guild Link Logs continues to dominate with a DPS of 1,477.5, holding this top spot for over a week now. Following closely behind is Krusty Mill from the Guild ADHD with a DPS of 1,455.1, and in third place, we have I Sold Out from the Guild Footlong Party Dog Sod, boasting a DPS of 1,432.2. The remaining top 10 players making their mark in the Ranged Hunter category are Multigummies, Floriberries, Disio, Cytex, Orlando Domer, Fragmaster, and QT. In the Arcane Mage category, Sao Yi Fashi has held the top spot for the past 10 days with a consistent DPS of 780.6. Following closely behind, Musakas has maintained the second position with a DPS of 726.1, while Burnett holds the third spot with a DPS of 724.6. The remaining top 10 players for today, in no particular order, are Dilpu, Quan Quan Shui, Moonfox, Digidu, Magical Paul, Imwasho, and Cuties. In the Fire Mage category, TDMZ continues to hold the top spot for the 10th consecutive day, with a DPS of 1,198.7. Close on TDMZ's heels, we have Chef, maintaining the second position with a DPS of 1,196.2. Rounding out the top 3 is Delano, with a DPS of 1,195.3. The competition remains fierce among the remaining top 10, including Arcana Terror, Spymage, Kiag Yeju Jiayi, Rainy, Zipiem, Mellowish, and Freak Prince. In the Frost Mage category, Silvership continues to hold the top spot for the 10th consecutive day, with a DPS of 1,108.1. Following closely behind is OB, maintaining second place with a DPS of 1,061.9. Rounding out the top 3 is Watchtome, with a DPS of 1039.4. The remaining top 10 players, in no particular order, are Juicy, Wixard, Shangmingyu Nai Zan Mei, Just Like Fire, Daijopa, KFC, and Clankma. In the Protection Paladin category, Boysothic from the guild who asked continues to dominate the leaderboard with a DPS of 1302.1, holding this position for over a week now. Close on his heels is Fought from the guild Xuanchang Cheng, with a DPS of 1299.2. Rounding out the top 3 is He Mea Se, who has maintained a DPS of 1291.7. The competition remains fierce among the remaining top 10 players Cruzesity, One Punch, Fakyaz, Duz, Serpali, Farvold, and Kazurkti. Each one is striving to climb higher in the rankings, making the Protection Paladin category a thrilling one to watch. In the Retribution Paladin category, the top 3 players have held their positions steady. Ji Zhu from the guild Anywhere continues to lead with a DPS of 1430.7, a position he's held for over a week. Close behind is Kui Yu with a DPS of 1429.4, and rounding out the top 3 is Pettery from Dragonslayers with a DPS of 1415.0. Not to be overlooked, the remaining top 10 players also show impressive stats: Paul Wang, Ryux, Elfchapo, Baby Toxic, Milocyrus, Fidan, and Jinix. In the Shadow Priest category, the top 3 players remain unchanged from yesterday. Leading the pack for over a week now is Shen Yuanjian, holding steady with a DPS of 1029.3. Following closely behind is Zhang Guiyu Luzhu, showcasing a DPS of 983.9, and rounding out the top 3 is Shengdu Di Liangxin with a DPS of 977.9. The remaining top 10 players, in no particular order, are Waga, Theradren, Heijal P. Flayed, Dog, Tachankin, and Pradas. In the DPS Rogue category, Ajanin from the Cartel Guild has held the top spot for over a week with a consistent DPS of 1565.0, showcasing remarkable performance. Today, Weeboofer X from the Bussen Guild has climbed to the second position with a DPS of 1556.4, pushing Mighty from the Summers Guild, who has a DPS of 1553.2, to the third spot. The remaining top 10 players, who continue to challenge these leaders with their impressive stats, include Karina, Enwich, Narangai, Sylve, Jushui Dai, IONL, and Body Snatcher. In the Tank Rogue category, Suanfu Tao Tao continues to hold the top spot for the 9th consecutive day, maintaining a DPS of 1118.0. Following closely, Wool secures the second position with a DPS of 1098.6, and Nerf Assassin rounds out the top 3, delivering a DPS of 1096.4. The competition remains fierce among the remaining top 10 players: Nova, Zombie, both Potank, Sketcher, Ochenta, Heis, and Pestosaurus, each striving to climb the ranks. In the Elemental Shaman category, Relix from the guild Ego continues to dominate with a DPS of 1303.6, holding the top position for over a week now. Following closely are Roxarone, maintaining a DPS of 1273.6, and Bread Gloves from the guild Male Models with a DPS of 1235.8. The remaining top 10 players making waves in the Elemental Shaman category are Paifu Wu Lei, Nerfshaman Mortytide, Hexmuther Bruce Wayne, Hiroshima, and Rumbles. In the Enhancement Shaman category, Bosseter from the guild Summers continues to hold the top spot for the 5th consecutive day, boasting a DPS of 1726.6. Easy follows closely behind, improving their DPS from yesterday's 1641.5 to today's 1657.9. BGT maintains the third position with a consistent DPS of 1637.0. The remaining top 10 players for today are NA, Brigand, Mahatuo, TTM, Fakeban, Schnapps, and Iopetisham. In the Tank Shaman category, Night Song from the guild Summers has been holding the top position for over a week with a DPS of 1147.5. Roll P from the guild Consortium is trailing behind at second place, maintaining a DPS of 1131.0. Vistalo from the guild Conspiracy holds the third spot with a DPS of 1126.9. The remaining top 10 players for today, in no particular order, are Iwo, Runsulsa, Dan QIU, DR Sippy Cup, Luuf, Beerjin, and Walks. In the DPS Warlock category, Firamatic continues to dominate the leaderboard, maintaining the top position with a DPS of 1,259.1 for over a week now. Close on their heels is Strawberry from the guild Chocolate Milk, boasting a DPS of 1,255.0. Rounding out the top 3 is Mature from the guild Lethal with a DPS of 1,225.5. The competition remains fierce among the remaining top 10 players, including Xiao Jin Ci Sheng Yu Hin, Taco Kiz, Jagiel Riang, Amayato, Open Coil, and Wayne Warlock. In the Tank Warlock category, Open Coil continues to dominate with a DPS of 1,177.4, holding this position for over a week now. Kelsis follows closely behind with a DPS of 1,060.8, and Enigmas XX rounds out the top 3 with a DPS of 1,045.0. The remaining top 10 players who are making their mark in this category include Lobster, John Randomdo, Dinosaur, Gravewalker, TikToxic, GigaProMax, and Hathos PhD. In the Fury Warrior category, Sapato from the guild Ego continues to dominate with a DPS of 1,801.5, maintaining the top spot for over a week now. Close behind, Atasmos from the guild Chinese Textile Machine holds steady with a DPS of 1,773.7. Rounding out the top 3, HK from the guild Chuan Chang delivers a DPS of 1,747.4. The competition remains fierce with the following warriors not far behind MFX, Duki, Amadayana, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ataz, Joho, and Motbio. In the Protection Warrior category, the top 3 players remain consistent. Holding the number 1 spot for over a week, Duo Luo Sizu from the guild Chuan Chan Chan continues to impress with a DPS of 1,620.9. Close on his heels is Bodil, who consistently delivers a DPS of 1,567.5. Rounding out the top 3 is Agony, also from the guild Xuan Cheng, with a DPS of 1,557.3. The remaining top 10 players for today, in no particular order, are Sufferix, Ogiez, Butane, Seedheart, Threat, Kabir, and Jeta.